Welcome to the Disneyland with Kids podcast, where we help you plan your vacation in 30 minutes or less. Many of us are feeling like Rapunzel, locked up in that tower. Whenever you are ready to travel, we are here to help you plan your vacation. Join the Disneyland with Kids group on Facebook, where we talk Disneyland, West Coast travel, and beyond. Please travel responsibly. On this episode of the Disneyland with Kids podcast, we are talking about some of the recent changes at Disneyland, and we are covering information about height requirements, rider switch pass, and more. I am Becca with this crazy adventure called Life.
And I am Julie from Mom Rewritten.
Okay, Julie, there have been some changes to Disneyland, and even though it is still not open, change is inevitable. The first I want to mention is that California has removed the regional stay-at-home orders and is now back on the colored tier system. And this is allowing Downtown Disney to resume outdoor dining. As a somewhat local, will you be making a trip up to support some of our favorite Downtown Disney companies?
Well, it's now been almost a year since I've been to the Disneyland Resort, so I'm definitely ready for a visit. And I held off visiting so far because my family's just been extremely cautious in regards to the pandemic, and we haven't really been going anywhere or doing anything. But if Downtown Disney retains their standards on mask wearing and continues to limit crowd numbers, then yes, I am planning to visit, do a little shopping and some dining. How about you, Becca? Any future plans to return?
For me, unfortunately not, but of course that's because I am not local. I'm in Idaho, so I would have to travel down, and I'm just not comfortable with that yet. We'll see if that changes. But there was another change I want to touch on, and it's probably the biggest and most controversial one. Let's talk about Disneyland canceling all annual passes. So on January 14th, Disneyland announced it was sunsetting the annual pass holder program. And I love that term, sunsetting. That they're canceling it in its current form. So we had a feeling this could happen. They did it in, was it Tokyo, I believe. And I think it makes sense, but I want to know your thoughts on this announcement, Julie.
Yeah, it's been a sad, sad year. We lost out on so many wonderful Disneyland times, and then having the annual pass holder program kind of stripped away when we're all so anxious for reopening. But Disney is sending refunds to those that still held active and fully paid passes before the park closures. And I guess because we could all use a little silver lining, Disney has also announced a new legacy pass holder title for those who held active annual passes as of March 14th, 2020. So there will be some special merchandise offerings and extended pass holder discounts for a limited time when shopping and dining at Downtown Disney and Buena Vista Street. And it sounds like Disney's just trying to soften the blow, and hopefully there will be some additional great offerings to legacy pass holders in the future. And of course, we all look forward to hearing what new annual pass program Disneyland comes up with.
Yeah, I have to say I missed that legacy pass holder title by 3 days because my pass expired on March 11th, and not being local, I don't just automatically renew my pass because then I lose valuable days. So I always plan it since there's no discount for renewing early anymore, I just plan to renew it the next time I'm at the park. So I have, a full year on my pass. And so because I didn't get back to the park because it closed, I missed out on being a legacy pass holder. Disneyland has been sending out emails. I want to touch on that with surveys about potential pass offerings. And our friend Dusty over at Mice Chat covered that and even did his own little survey to kind of try and figure out what the answers that might be coming into Disney look like. So if you want to check that out, I'll link that in the show notes below. But change is hard for all of us. And I know a lot of people have been upset by the pass holder change. But sometimes change can be good. So speaking of change, Julie, I haven't taken my kids to Disneyland since September of 2019 when we were there for that very first Oogie Boogie Bash. When was the last time you took your kids?
So long. We were there for Oogie Boogie Bash as well. And then we returned in November 2019 for the holidays. But The last time I was at the park with one of my kids, I took just my middle son, who was 8 at the time, and we went for the day in January to experience Lunar New Year celebrations. And we weren't able to secure a Rise of the Resistance reservation, and my son hasn't let me live it down since.
Oh man, I remember that. And we talked about that in our Rise of the Resistance episode. So if anyone's interested in listening to that, they should go check that episode out. But so some changes my family will see when we return to the parks is my twins and even my oldest have hit new height requirements. We are a family that measures our kids by height requirements. Like you're not 39 inches tall, you're almost 40 inches tall, which is tall enough for certain rides. That's how we measure our kids. And we even made a Disneyland height chart with the height requirements marked on it. I did a whole blog post on it. So I'll link that for anyone that is interested in making their own. But what I want to know is, have any of your kids hit a new height requirement?
Yes, my 4-year-old daughter. The rest of my kids are tall enough for everything.
Disney is going to be different for both of us. I think since we all need a little something to look forward to, maybe today we should talk about height requirements, which ones are big ones, and what rides we'll be able to take our kids on for the first time when the parks open. Plus, maybe touch on ride or switch pass when kids can ride alone. All those things parents have to think about. Sound good to you?
Yes, let's do it. I definitely like having a reason to be excited in regards to Disneyland for a change.
All right. Well, let's dive right in. To start, I have to talk about the fact that other theme parks, specifically thinking about Knott's Berry Farm, work their height requirements a little differently. So Knott's has a height requirement for riding with adults and then a separate height requirement for riding alone. And this is on almost every ride. And that's not how Disney height requirements work. In general, Disney is just a height requirement to ride. There's only a couple of exceptions where they have the riding alone one. So we'll get into the few rides at Disney that use that height requirement for riding alone. But I have to say, I definitely prefer Disney's method where most of them is just a straight height requirement compared to the Knott's Berry Farm one, which I find confusing.
Yeah, I agree.
So many rides in the park have no height restrictions. So don't think that your kids have to hit these height requirements before you go to Disneyland because it will still be fun. Rides without height requirements are open to guests of all heights, but rides with a little more thrill factor for safety reasons do have height restrictions. The first height restriction that kids must meet is a 32-inch height requirement. Julie, as of this recording, what new rides become available for kids when they hit 32 inches?
The Autopia in Tomorrowland, which is one of two that does have a separate height requirement to ride alone. And that's just because you're driving a car and you need to be able to reach the pedals to ride it alone.
Yes. So speaking of riding alone, my mother-in-law, I love her dearly, but she is 4'8", maybe 4'9".
Wow.
I can't remember. She barely hits that ride alone, but you have to really floor those pedals on the Autopia cars to get them to go. And so she does not ride it alone. My husband rides with her and pushes the pedals for her.
Love it.
So, it's yeah. So but that's not the only one. What else can kids ride at 32 inches in height?
The other two are both in Cars Land, and that's Mater's Junkyard Jamboree and Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters.
Yes, those are both great. I will say when our twins hit 32 inches, we went to Disneyland for spring break, and we had just taken 18 months off from going to Disneyland. So we were so excited about them hitting the 32 inches, and we were like, let's go on Mater's, thinking it would be a great first ride. And oops. When you haven't ridden a ride since you were 6 months old and you were in carriers for most of the rides, that is not a great first. It took us 2 full days to even get them to want to try another ride. So definitely work up to that one if your kids have not done rides in a while, and the same with Luigi's. Okay, Julie, the next height requirement kids will hit is 35 inches. And I love this one because it is their first roller coaster at Disneyland. What will they be riding?
35 inches is the magic number for riding Gadget's Go Coaster in Mickey's Toontown. It's a very short, mild roller coaster, so it's great for testing the waters to see if they like it or not. And I think the entire ride is only like 1 minute long. And this ride only has one vehicle, so the line can get very long. I would recommend definitely hitting this up early in the morning or later in the evening to avoid the longer lines.
That is a great tip because it does get long and it's in the sun. Gets so hot.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, my kids always looked terrified the first time they rode that ride. I love snapping that picture. If you stand right by the height requirement marker and use a camera, you can get a great picture right as they come around the fast corner, relative fast, But they always ask to ride it again, even though they look terrified. So it used to be, Julie, that the next height requirement was 40 inches, and we'll talk about that one in a moment. But with the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, we also got a new height requirement, 38 inches. Apparently, that is tall enough to fly the Millennium Falcon on a mission. So, what are your thoughts on that, Julie?
Yes, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run in Galaxy's Edge has a 38-inch height requirement. But that doesn't mean it's right for your kid because this is one of those that parents might want to test it out first. The ride can be extremely bumpy. The seats are not next to each other, so you won't be able to hold a child that might be scared. And some kids may love this ride, but others may not.
So, how did your kids feel about it, Julie?
Well, my older 3 kids loved it, but the preschooler, not so much. She was only 3 when we went on it, and the cast member had her sit in front of me, which meant she was in the pilot's chair. And she was fussing the entire time. She didn't want to touch any of the buttons. She didn't want to steer. I spent the entire time trying to reach around the seat to try and touch her arm so she knew I was there. And for sure, if I took her on this again, I try and have her sit next to me, like in a less demanding position, maybe like engineer. And I think she would enjoy it a lot better. So, how about your boys, Becca?
Well, my oldest loved it, but the twins haven't even wanted to try it yet. Probably okay, since one gets motion sickness even easier than I
Yeah.
do. And I shared, Jessica and I did an episode a while back about being sick at Disneyland and how I got motion sickness on this ride. So that's definitely a fun episode to check out. Okay, Julie, the next height requirement is the big one. When kids hit this requirement, they're able to ride nearly all of the rides in the park. There'll only be a handful that they can't ride anymore. That height requirement is 40 inches. When we last went as a family, one of my twins had barely hit this height requirement, and the other one was like an inch and a half too short still. But now both of them have hit it and surpassed it, hitting even the next one. So this is going to be a huge change for how we do the parks.
Yeah, we're really excited for our next Disneyland trip because my daughter has also exceeded the 40-inch mark. I measured her this morning and she's actually over 41 inches. So at 40 inches, kids can ride 10 new rides. And in the interest of time, I'll just go through the rides a little quick, but I will link my article on rides that might be scary for kids in the show notes to help you decide which ones are right for your children. So the rides with the 40-inch height requirement are Big Thunder Mountain in Frontierland, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout in Avengers Campus, Jumpin' Jellyfish in Paradise Park, Radiator Springs Racers in Cars Land, Star Wars Rise of the Resistance in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Silly Symphony Swings, which also has a minimum height to ride alone, and that's located in Paradise Park, Soarin' Around the World in Grizzly Peak, Space Mountain in Tomorrowland, Splash Mountain in Critter Country, and Star Tours in Tomorrowland.
That is so many new rides my kids will be able to do, and I am super excited to take my kids on these. Which one are you most excited to take your youngest on?
Oh, I've already discussed this with my daughter. She's most excited for Radiator Springs Racers and Cars Land. I mean, I'll try and get her to do them all, but I don't think she's going to go anywhere near Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. So how about your kids, Becca?
Well, mine won't go near Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout either, but Probably Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, as it is my favorite thrill ride, and I already have a son that loves trains, so he's like, "I wanna go on the fast train." He's the one that didn't quite make it last time we were there, so I'm excited to take him.
Yes.
Okay, so once kids hit 40 inches, there are only a few more height requirements to hit. The next one is 42 inches, which both of my twins have hit since their last visit. And those rides include Goofy's Sky School in Paradise Park, Grizzly River Run in Grizzly Peak, and the Matterhorn bobsleds, which is in Fantasyland, and you can access it through Tomorrowland as well. But there's a non-ride attraction that also has a 42-inch height requirement. Do you know what that is, Julie?
Yes, it's the rock wall and the zip line in the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail. And it also has a maximum height of 63 inches and a maximum age of 13.
That is important for parents to know because kids, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, they want to climb walls and do zip lines and they just might not be able to.
Yeah.
So at 46 inches, kids can ride Indiana Jones Adventure in Adventureland. And then at 48 inches, which my oldest has finally hit, what can they ride, Julie?
Well, they can finally go on the Incredicoaster at Pixar Pier. And that's a coaster that goes pretty fast and it has a loop.
Yes, I am so excited to take my son on it. He is a bit nervous, but I keep reminding him he was nervous for all the 40-inch rides as well, and now he loves most of them. Height requirements are a super popular topic for families planning a Disneyland vacation, and I bet you know what one of the most popular questions regarding height requirements is.
Oh, yes. They want to know how accurate are those height markers.
Yep. In fact, do you remember a few years ago we were getting that question so much? I took a measuring tape into the parks and measured nearly all of the height requirement markers. I'll link the article in the show notes, but let's just say they're pretty accurate. And those that aren't, well, you might be surprised by the results. So, Julie, let's talk about tips for measuring kids and why kids may not reach that height requirement marker, even though you measured them at home and you swore they were that height.
Well, the first thing to do at home is to put them in shoes that they'll probably be wearing at the park. Don't put them in high heels, just regular tennis shoes that you would normally have. Don't put anything inside the shoes to make them taller. And have them stand up against the wall, put their heels back, just like at the doctor's office, and then use a regular tape measure to measure, their height up against the wall. And take note of that. And let the kids know ahead of time, too, how tall they are so that you can prep them in advance on what rides they'll be able to ride.
That's a great tip. Yeah, definitely have them practice standing tall. If you can, do a hard floor because the carpet can affect that measurement you get at home. And then just practice standing tall, putting their hands behind their back and clasping them helps them stand tall. And just also remember at the beginning of the day, we're all a little taller, we're excited. And then as the day goes on, we get a little shorter. So if there's a ride height requirement that they're barely hitting and you want to see if they can go on that, hit it up first thing in the day when they have energy and they're standing taller. And also just know that even if they don't make it, they do have these little things you can ask for a pass, and it says, that they didn't quite hit the height requirement, but when they do hit it, they can bring that back and it will act as a fast pass. And they have that at several of them, maybe not all of them, but you can ask about one if there's a ride they were really excited about and just didn't quite make it. So, Julie, as parents, we often have kids that are different heights. I mean, even my twins are different heights. So let's talk about options to parents when not all of their kids can ride something. First, let's talk about Rider Switch Pass, which is also known as Parent Swap, and how that can help families out.
Yeah, Rider Switch Pass allows one adult to sit out with the kids that are not tall enough and then ride the attraction utilizing the Fast Pass line with up to 2 guests when that first group is done. So the parents can swap out who rides. And to get a Rider Switch Pass, your entire party will head to the line entrance and talk to a cast member, and they will set up your party for a rider switch pass. And it's important to have the child who is not able to ride with you so that the cast member can see.
We have made really good use of Rider Switch Pass in the past. In fact, it used to be back in the day of paper switch passes, you could come back any time of the day to use that second for the second group. But all that changed when it went digital. Can you explain how it works with the digital version?
Yeah, certainly. So Rider Switch Pass is now linked to your tickets and it's viewable in the Disneyland app. We have an entire episode on the Disneyland app, so be sure to listen and download the app and explore it before your trip, just so you're really familiar with how it works. And with Rider Switch Pass, you will have a 1 hour return window in which to return to the ride. But the time of that return will be noted in the app. So having that is vital for parents who are using this program.
Definitely. And if you want more tips on Rider Switch Pass, be sure to join the Disneyland with Kids group on Facebook because I know once the parks open, we will be sharing all about using it and any ways it may have changed in the group. Now, Julie, let's say a parent is alone with their kids and not all of them are tall enough to ride. What now?
Well, if your kids are not old enough to ride alone, then parents will have to just stick to the rides that all of their children can ride together.
Yes. And what constitutes as riding alone varies from ride to ride. So if you ever need to know, ask the cast member at the beginning of the line because you don't want to wait for half an hour and then find out you can't do it. Riding alone in general, in most rides means a different vehicle. So if you cannot all fit in one Doom buggy on Haunted Mansion or one car on Alice in Wonderland or one seashell on The Little Mermaid, then you will not be able to ride that attraction. So for parents going alone, it is wonderful when an older child is able to finally ride alone or they're old enough to take a younger child with them. So Julie, what is the age requirement for riding alone or accompanying a young child?
Well, Disney states that any child under the age of 7 must be accompanied by someone age 14 or older on an attraction. So once your child is older than that, they can ride alone. Or if you have a teen who's 14 or older, then they can take a younger sibling on a ride without a parent.
Yes, my oldest was so excited when he hit the age to ride alone. He would constantly ask to ride alone, even if we didn't need him to. But what's really funny is he's really short, so his age is always questioned. Even now, it's still questioned. In fact, they stopped the Haunted Mansion one time because he made it past the loading. They'd asked his age, but the next cast member where the lap bar lowers didn't believe he was old enough to ride alone, so she stopped the ride to triple check.
Okay.
So if your kids are just old enough to ride solo or they are short, be sure to let them know they may have to answer the age a lot. And I also have tips for letting kids ride alone on this crazy adventure called life. I know we are getting short on time, but I want to quickly touch base on one more change just because I'm so excited about it for my family.
Okay, what is it?
We won't be taking a stroller anymore.
Oh, that is a big one.
Yes, I am both excited to not need to maneuver the big double stroller around the parks, but I'm also nervous because strollers were so nice for tired kiddos and to hold all of our crap. And am I allowed to say crap? I hope so, because I'm going to. But it was so nice to hold all of our crap while we were in the parks.
Yeah. My daughter's about to turn 5, so we're probably getting to that point as well. Yeah, and we do have a lot of people wondering if their kids will need one or not in our group. So I think we might need to do another episode just about strollers.
I think so, Julie. So let's wrap this up with our traditional Disneyland Would You Rather. So, Julie, today's Would You Rather is from Barb E, and I think it's perfect for today. Would you rather take a child to Disneyland when they still believe in the magic, or wait until they're old enough and tall enough to enjoy all the rides, but no longer believe all of the magic?
Oh my goodness, all of the magic and all of the pixie dust. There's nothing like taking your toddler who believes that Mickey is the real thing. Seriously, I just love those special moments. So I'm team take your kids when they're little. So what's your answer, Becca?
I don't know if I can answer. I'm now just devastated because I just learned that Mickey isn't the real thing. Julie, are you telling me that's not the real Mickey Mouse?
Sorry.
Way to kill the magic, Julie. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm devastated now. Okay, but seriously, I love both because there's something about when they're like so excited to see Mickey Mouse and their
Yeah.
faces light up. But then there's also it's so much fun to go on those thrill rides. And if you're really into rides, there's just something about once they're able to just run from ride to ride with you that both ages are great. And I always say it's always a great time to take your kids to Disneyland. That is all the time we have for you today. You have been listening to Julie and Becca discuss Disneyland height requirements and Rider Switch Pass. Want more Disneyland tips and news directly in your inbox? Be sure to join our newsletter at disneylandwithkids.info, and we will see you real soon.